I'm listening to you and I'm like, if that was my child in a school and they were being, I would be angry. I would be very angry. And I was a little bit angry when I lived in Mid Wales, and they did have contact. I mean, I personally, as a mum, don't want that. I don't want those kind of ideas as a mother in my child's head, because as a mother, you try to bring up a rounded human being because you are that person is the future. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and the future is the other thing I was thinking when I was listening to you is I really commend you for opening this conversation and the debate. Like you're saying, like it needs to be democratized, because I've often had those conversations about the tax system and how, as an individual, you should be able to choose. Like, do you want your revenue, your tax to go to military? Because I definitely would say no. You know, I would just be like, no.
Yes.
Do you want your money to go to education? Yes, but I want the education system to be different. I
Hmm.
want it to be more holistic, and I want it to be more about preparing for the future and caring, and a different, just learning more about humanity and how together we can build what we want to see and be that change. Because we have to do it. We have to do it. You're doing it. I'm trying to do it. We have to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. Newsflash. Nobody else is going to do it. Government certainly aren't going to do it because they are having a great time, I'm sure. Like the people who are profiting, what's their incentive to change? So yeah, when I listen to you also, it just keeps coming back into my head. You make your worst fears come true. You make your worst. It's like the law of attraction. So like the whole defense thing is that we're defending ourselves, and it's like, and then we're going into this place and we're defending ourselves, and we're going into that place and we're defending ourselves. You're making yourself vulnerable, and you are making your worst fears come true. It's like that is that philosophy that you see it play out a lot. Well, I do. So
Yeah, it comes into this topic of rethinking security as well. Um, you know, people aren't being defended in their day-to-day lives in this country. People are struggling to pay for their bills. The nurses were asking for a 16 billion pound. That's what they needed to give everyone a pay rise annually. Now they didn't have that money, but they upped the defense budget by how many bill? It really is just a complete twisting and framing of the word defense and security, because a lot of people in our country don't feel secure right now, and that's wrong. That's really, really wrong. And I think you're totally right about I completely agree with you that our education systems need to consider the more human aspect, the connection to our planet, the roots of the problems that we face. Why are so many children depressed right now? Why are so many people unhappy? All these things that can actually make a thriving society where people want to contribute to it and are being given something back, which is good for their lives. So, and I think there's a lot of potential in our education system. So, this is why I feel like it really is at the heart of the fight.
yeah, I totally agree. I think they have, and they are trying to change the curriculum in Wales. I think they're making it more free, completely giving it a little bit of an overhaul because it was stuck. And I've thought this for a long time, that it's stuck in this. It's kind of almost Victorian hangover, I feel, where you sit down in your class and you learn your maths, and you're like, well, how is that going to help with food security? Because this is what I'm worried about. You know, how's that going to help with the food chain? How's that going to help? my grandchildren, that are they going to be going to Tesco's? I'm not sure. You know, like what's going to happen? Like, and there's so much more that we can learn. And I recently I've changed my views about society in a way. Like, I mean, in my head, I've had a shift where, you know, if you look to different ways of living, like different cultures, like tribes and shamans and all these things, where we can learn so much because we kind of like lost our connections and humanity. And it's like the same with you watch TV and you hear a war over there, and you hear, oh, that place has been bombed, and it's like it's so far removed, but it is all connected. It's all connected. So I think it's about thinking in different ways as well, that from what we're used to. I think it is a big shift in, you know, your philosophy or like how you view things. And obviously these conversations, like having this conversation, is so important. And what you're doing, your work, opening it up and saying, well, why are we doing this? You know, and we all know that so many people in this country marched against the invasion of Iraq, and nobody listened.
Exactly. Yeah, there was over 3 million here and 30 million worldwide. And guess what? All those people were correct. That war did not help anything. And yeah, I completely agree. I think this is, you know, a bit more personal rather than me speaking for demilitarized education, but I completely agree. You know, Russell Brand, whatever you think of him, he says it a lot. It's a spiritual revolution that needs to take place, and tapping into that ancestral knowledge, the knowledge that is embedded within the nature and the world around us, is fundamental to achieving those objectives, the objectives of security that our militaries are failing us on. And yeah, like, I think meditation is a really amazing way for us to be able to switch off from our minds and actually be able to listen to what we have learned through our ancestral history. And, you know, obviously some people will hear that and think like, okay, fairy, you know, like whatever. But generally, this is knowledge which has stood for a long time, and we should not turn our nose up to it.
No, exactly. And also, I mean, I am a Russell Brand fan. I'm always like banging on because I'm like follow him and like the locals thing and everything. Some people think he's this and that, and they've got this idea of him like from years ago. But I've watched his journey, and it's very interesting, because he does like the 12 steps and everything, which is a great philosophy. Yeah, but yeah, so it is a spiritual revolution because. And we have to open our creativity as well for the new fertile ground and new ideas to come through. And I think as much as technology, it can work for us, it can work against us. For example, like with the internet, it's amazing, and that's one of the reasons why we can connect globally. But also, I think we have to kind of find a new discipline in ourselves to be focused and have time away from it, so we can meditate or we can rest and we can tap into like a universal intelligence which is here, which is far more intelligent than anything that man can make, in my opinion. So I think to start thinking in different ways and start putting in different structures. I've recently discovered this amazing podcast called Accidental Gods, and this is what they talk about. And I don't know if you know it, but it's absolutely, I'm just obsessed with it right now because I'm like, I found this, look at this is amazing. And I love searching and finding new things, and that's obviously how I found you. And yeah, so we have to start implementing these new ways of thinking and having these conversations. But yeah, I find it quite sad that you've said that the primary schools and the schools are kind of connected as well. I find that quite a sad thing, you know, and I find it quite shocking as well. But maybe I shouldn't. Why wouldn't it be?
This is it. And I think that links perfectly to what you were just saying about finding these new ways of thinking and why we generally are on the brink of a spiritual revolution, because people are at the stage where they do not trust. That is powerful. It's really sad and it's really scary. But that is powerful because it enables us to be able to look to alternative community. For example, one element of it is that the military is being promoted as our key peace building tool, which it's never really achieved, throughout schools, all the way through to higher education, where they do have more of a dominant role in some students' lives. You know, that's something, another guide for us to be able to look for alternative ways to think.
Yeah. So, what can people do? So, our listeners who are listening, and maybe there's some students who are at Cardiff Uni, or maybe there's some students in Swansea, or any of the Welsh universities, or anyone who wants to support you. What can they do? Because I've really found your database brilliant, and I was thinking, oh wow, do you do all of the freedom of information requests? Because those are quite difficult. Because since doing the journalism, I've had some friends trying to do those, and it's really hard work. So I commend you on doing that. Is that what you did? You just started doing freedom of information requests, or how did you? This information, your database is amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but we're really it's not just me. I founded the education with volunteers. Millie, who's our database manager, started off as a volunteer and now processes all the freedom of information act requests. And we have Cindy, Liam, Kofi. There's a lot of us, plus all the members and the contributors. And what we were really passionate about, particularly me, because I experienced it as a student, was the making sure that there was actually a central database tracking what has already happened on campus, because so many students will realize that their university is partnering with these really corrupt and deadly industries, and they'll think, oh my god, I've got to do something about it, and they'll have no access to all the things the previous students who have been working on this for decades have already done. So not only is the database tracking the evidence, the data of these partnerships, which are collected mostly through Freedom of Information Act requests, but it's also tracking any actions that are happening on campus, any military spottings, and whether they are being transparent and listening to students about it. We have created a really easy to follow FOI guide.
You've got a guide. That's amazing.
Yes, yeah, we've worked very hard on it, and it's from experience of sending our own, and we're trying to make essentially what you see in the database right now is a bit of a random collection, right? So right now we have £1 million of military partnerships and defence sector partnerships at Cardiff University. Now that is based on some research, but what we're working on doing right now is making sure that we have a consistent level of research on each university. And that is why we created the work guides. We are comparing them off the same data collection. Yeah, what you can do, come to our website, either email us or join our Discord, or feel free to message on social media too. We will then set you up with a work guide to see how you have contributed to the world's first university and arms database.
Basically, students out there, they get on it, isn't it? They can just totally get on it.
Yeah, come join us on Discord. We've got over 200 people on there.
I've really enjoyed our chat, and I just want to say before we go, I really love your presentation as well, because you're like a rock star, like icon, fashion queen, and I just love it because I'm like, oh, you're such a role model, like icon. I just love it.
Thank you so much. That
Yeah,
means a lot, and I really appreciate your support on social media as well. As
yeah.
it's the wild world, but thank you. It was
No.
gotta be yourself. You gotta be yourself.
Exactly, we got to be ourselves, and we got to be that change as well. You know, the more I'm kind of delving into it, and like, because obviously for a long time we sit around, that people like us with like, oh, how can we do this, how can we solve everything? It's like your life's mission, you know. And I always used to sing about it, and it's like, you know, people like you are excellent role models for the future. And so yeah, I do fully support your work, and I'm really, really glad that you came on the show, and I'm so grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and honestly, it's really, really amazing to be invited on. I've really enjoyed it too. It's so
Oh,
nice to chat with
brilliant.
you. And
Yeah, so I'll stay in touch, and everybody can follow you on, I found you on Instagram, but you've got your own website, and it's very extensive, and you've obviously got a team behind you, which is, so shout out to them as well. Because yeah, it's definitely a very, very imperative conversation, because it's a big cog in the wheel of this system we're in. So yeah, let's imagine the future in a positive way, how we want to be, and let's get in touch with ourselves as real human beings who aren't aggressive, who are loving, and we work in our communities for a better future.
hell yeah, amen to that, sister.